In the following clip you're about to watch, a man was in the middle of editing a video late at night when he got up for a break and noticed something in the reflection of his white French door, the glass acting like a dark mirror against the night outside. And sitting in the corner of his sofa in that reflection is a dense, dark mass with no shape, no detail, just a shadow that has no business being there. He pans to the actual sofa, empty. He pans back to the reflection, still there.
Estaba editando un video y decidí levantarme para cenar algo, pero quiero que vean algo. Esto está muy cabrón, es otro nivel. Les voy a poner la cámara frontal para que vean. Vean lo que se ve aquí en este reflejo. Y en la esquina del sillón se ve esa sombra, pero no hay nada. No hay nada ahí. ¿Ven? Ahí está. Esto ya está muy cabrón. No mames. Estaba atrás de mí. ¿Quién eres? ¿Qué quieres? ¿Estaba atrás de mí? Está aquí afuera. ¿Qué quieres? ¿Quién eres? ¿Dónde estás? Aquí estaba. No, yo ya. Ya me morí, no ya.
What makes this one land harder than most isn't just the shadow on the sofa, it's what replaces it. Around the 1 minute mark, the shadow is gone, and in its place, visible only in the reflection, a tall, thin figure is now standing directly behind him, not across the room anymore, right behind him, while he's holding the camera, completely unaware of how much the situation has changed since he started filming. In paranormal research, shadow figures that appear specifically in reflective surfaces, glass, mirrors, dark windows are considered a distinct category from standard apparitions, entities that exist at the boundary between spaces rather than fully within either one, using the reflective threshold the same way a two-way mirror works, able to observe without being directly seen. The behavior here is the detail that unsettles people most, the way it closes the distance between the first reflection check and the second, as if it was watching him figure out it was there and decided to move while his attention was on the camera. He says at the end, "I'm leaving now," and across every cultural tradition that has ever documented something like this, that is exactly the correct response. So what do you think? Was that glass showing him something that was in that room all night? Or did noticing it give it permission to come closer? In this next clip, a man is filming alone at night, or at least he thinks he's alone, after hearing what sounds like a faucet turning on by itself somewhere inside the house. Armed with his phone, he makes his way down a short set of stairs toward a closed white door, his breathing already unsteady before he's even opened it. When he swings the door open into the dark bathroom and switches on the light, he finds the bathtub faucet running at full pressure, water pouring in with nobody around. "There's nobody here," he says in Spanish, and then, in the mirror, he sees something that changes that entirely.
Escuché que abrió una llave de un baño. No entiendo por qué. Está bien. Está abierta. aquí. No mames. Hay alguien ahí dentro de la tina. ¿Quién eres? ¿Qué quieres? No mames. Prende la luz. Fuck. Ya lo está. ¿Qué pedo? Aquí había alguien, aquí había alguien. Otra vez me tocó, no mames, no. Ya me voy.
What he catches in that bathroom over the next minute and a half is relentless. The faucet running on its own is unsettling enough, but then a small childlike figure appears motionless behind the semi-transparent shower curtain, and when he yanks it open, there's nothing there. The cabinet door above the toilet swings open on its own with a soft creak, and in the mirror, if you watch carefully, the small figure appears directly behind him, hands rising slowly onto his shoulders, and he doesn't notice it until the screech hits and he physically jolts sideways, saying in a panic, "Again, it touched me." Some viewers think the child figure is a classic example of what paranormal communities call a residual haunting, a presence so tied to a space that it keeps repeating the same behavior, the same appearance, over and over, regardless of who walks in. Others point to the more troubling detail. Something in that bathroom doesn't want him to leave. The doorknob rattles and sticks as he tries to get out, and his voice breaks when he finally says, "I'm leaving now." Whether you believe this is genuine or not, the footage is cut together in a way that's genuinely hard to shake. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying watching this video. What exactly was standing behind that shower curtain, and why did it keep coming back after he'd already checked? In this next clip, a man is filming his Dalmatian on a concrete patio during the day when his dog's behavior stops him cold. The dog is standing completely rigid, staring up at something in the overcast sky above it. He says, "Even my dog knows something ain't right, man." And that line kind of says everything.
My dog's weirded out. Even my dog knows something ain't right, man. You okay?
A dark, branch-like object hangs motionless against the grey clouds. No movement, no drift, nothing a balloon or kite would do. What's harder to dismiss is the dog. Animals are widely believed to perceive things outside human sensory range, and that locked, unbroken stare toward the sky is difficult to explain away. So what exactly were they both looking at? This next clip was filmed at nighttime outside what appears to be a residential building, somewhere near a narrow alleyway marked with the number 77 on the wall. A young boy is out there with whoever is holding the camera, and from the very beginning, the boy's attention keeps drifting toward a black metal gate at the end of the alley, like something on the other side is pulling it there. He walks over to the corner, peers through the bars, points into the darkness, then walks back. Then he does it again. No explanation, no reaction from anyone around him. Just a child, alone with a blonde doll on a tiled ledge, drawn over and over toward whatever is down that alley.
No hay nada, papá. A la verga. ¿Cómo ves? Vente por acá, vente por acá. Vente por acá, métete. Papi, no juegues tan brusco con las muñecas, papi. Ahí está el guante y Scary Movie también. Los caminos de la vida. Ey, Eliezer. Hijo, ¿qué estás ahí? Hazte para acá, mi amor. ¿Eh? ¿Tu amiga? ¿En dónde? ¿De quién hablas? ¿Tú quién?
Mi amigo.
¿Tu amiga? ¿Hay una persona ahí? A ver, vete para acá. Ahí no hay nadie, mi amor. Póngase a jugar. Mi amiga. lo que dice. No juegues tan brusco, papi. Búscame otra vez. Hijo. Hey, hijo. Te dije que te vinieras a jugar y que no estuvieras ahí. No hay...
Quiere jugar conmigo.
¿Cómo que tu amiga, papá? Ahí no hay nadie, mi amor.
Mira.
A ver, hazte para acá. Mira, ven, no, ven para acá. Te voy a explicar. Aquí no hay absolutamente... ¿Eh?
¡Estás pisando!
¿A quién estoy pisando, papi?
¡A mi amiga! ¡Está enterrada!
¿Enterrada en dónde?
¡Allí!
¿Aquí donde estoy yo?
Sí.
A ver, mejor, ¿sabes qué? Vete por allá. A ver, te está afectando mucho ver películas. Ya no te voy a poner la tele en la noche, papi, ¿eh? Porque estás jugando muy raro y estás viendo cosas que no. No hay ninguna amiga, papi. ¿Tú la has visto? Ay, no. ¿Y cómo que quiere jugar contigo? ¿Te habla o qué?
Sí.
¿Qué te dice? Aquí no hay nada, papá. A la verga. ¿Cómo es? Vete por acá, vete por acá. Vete por acá, métete. Métete. Ven. ¿Cómo es ella? ¿Cómo es? Es que vi algo al fondo. ¿Cómo es?
Es una niña.
¿Es una niña grande o chiquita?
Grande.
Ay, vete.
That tall, robed figure, standing completely motionless at the far end of the alley. It doesn't move, doesn't react, and when the camera checks back at the 2-minute mark, it's still there, in the exact same spot. Some viewers immediately pointed to La Llorona, or similar cloaked spirit figures from Latin American folklore, entities said to linger near children in darkness. Others think this is staged. But what's harder to dismiss is the boy himself. His expression when he turns back toward the camera is serious, almost troubled, like he genuinely knows something is there, and he called it his friend. So what was he actually looking at? Now in this next clip, a couple staying overnight in a cave dwelling built into the Appalachian Mountains woke up at 3 a.m. to screaming coming from somewhere out in the dark, and neither of them could explain where it was coming from. The setup alone is unsettling enough. They're sleeping inside a structure carved into natural rock, connected to the rest of the property by a narrow suspension bridge that disappears into pitch black woods. When the woman needed to use the bathroom, she had no choice but to cross it alone. Watch.
This is where we're sleeping tonight.
Pound Town, baby.
Not Pound Town. That's a literal cave outside. It's not funny. We're going to bed now. The door is locked.
A pocket Glock.
What's your safe word for tonight?
Wendigo.
That was fucking terrifying. Oh my god.
You want to go down the stairs?
Do I want to go down those stairs?
Okay.
I didn't see that before.
Look where it goes to.
Hell no, Chase. Hell no.
Let's go down there, babe.
No.
Get you back to the cemetery. Oh, it's starting to rain hard.
Let's go. You go first. Because if the rat runs and charges
How
it.
dark it is. Look, watch this. What would you do if there was a figure right there? Watch. All right, third time's a charm. Wendigo. Strap.
What just heard something? It's probably a rat.
Probably a skinwalker.
Babe, it was a massive rat.
Was it a possum or raccoon?
No, it was a rat.
You know it was a rat.
I know it was a rat. I know what a rat looks like.
Good night.
What you're watching is her making that crossing at 3 in the morning, the surrounding darkness swallowing everything beyond the flashlight beam, while her boyfriend waits on the other side shirtless, holding a handgun and a flashlight, clearly not treating whatever they heard as nothing. The Appalachians have a long history of unexplained sounds, with locals and hikers reporting screams, howls, and voices that don't match any known wildlife. Some believe it's simply a fox or a mountain lion. Others aren't so sure. Whatever made those sounds that night, they never did get it on camera. Now in this next clip, a mother named Alyssa started noticing something unusual about the way her baby boy behaves near one specific bedroom in the house. Not the living room, not the kitchen, not any other room, just that one. Every single time he gets close to that doorway, his whole demeanor shifts. He becomes focused, animated, almost giddy, as though something inside is greeting him, something nobody else can see. Alyssa says this happens every time, without fail, and she finally decided to film it to show people what she's been witnessing.
He does this every single time he goes into this room. Oh, why do you do that? It's only that room. What in the world? Why are you doing that?
The baby sits right at the threshold, looking into that empty room, then turns back toward the camera with a huge smile and excited little sounds, back and forth, like he's taking turns with someone. Many believe young children, especially babies, can perceive things adults simply can't. Some call it innocence, as a kind of spiritual antenna. Others think it could be a familiar presence, a loved one who passed, drawn to the child. You decide, what exactly is he seeing in there? In the following clip you're about to watch, a man had been watching something crouch at the far end of his porch on his doorbell camera every single night for a week straight. Same spot, same low position, same time. And on this particular night, he decided he was done watching it on a screen. He stepped outside, phone in hand, and started shouting into the dark that he'd already called the cops and had everything on film. The kind of confrontation that's supposed to end with a person running or an animal scattering. The porch is empty. The yard is completely quiet. Nothing moves. Watch.
I've seen this person outside my house every night this week on the doorbell camera. Whoever's out here, I called the cops, and I have you on film. Oh my god! Oh my god!
As he turns back toward the house, something is looking out at him through the slats of the blinds. A woman with long dark hair, a yellow top, and eyes that are completely white. No iris, no pupil, just blank. With her mouth slightly open in something that sits just wrong enough to not be called a smile. Then the blind snaps shut. And if you go back and watch the first pass along that window, there's nothing visible through the slats at all, which means whatever was standing inside that room either wasn't there yet or didn't want to be seen until he turned around. In paranormal research, entities that position themselves at windows and doorways are considered threshold presences, beings that operate specifically at the boundary between inside and outside, observed and unobserved. And the white eyes reported across multiple cultural traditions are consistently associated with something that isn't fully human in its current form. A vessel, an apparition, or something wearing a shape it borrowed rather than grew into. The detail that lingers most is the week of crouching at the end of the porch, because whatever was out there every night wasn't lost or wandering, it was watching, and it had been doing it long enough to learn his schedule. So what do you think? Was something waiting outside that house all week for him to finally come out, or had it already been inside the entire time? The following video was recorded by a man at 2 in the morning inside his apartment, a place he claims has been active since long before this night, something he describes as a presence that has followed him across multiple videos and refuses to leave him alone. By the time he picks up his phone to start filming, the sounds have already begun coming from the dark living room, a rhythmic, repetitive creaking, the kind that stops you mid-breath because you know there's nothing in there that should be moving.
Son las 2 de la mañana, se están escuchando ruidos en la sala. Están moviendo la silla, raza. A la madre. Escucho algo acá, raza. Tomaron el desodorante. ¿Qué estará pasando, anda? Madre.
Some viewers think the sheer volume and variety of sounds in such a short window points towards something staged, and that's a fair argument to make. But others point out that poltergeist-type activity, a term rooted in German folklore meaning noisy ghost, traditionally associated with volatile, object-moving disturbances rather than quiet apparitions, often presents in exactly this pattern, escalating, chaotic, spread across multiple locations in the same space, and almost impossible to predict or document clearly. It didn't stop there. An hour later, he's back in the same bedroom, woken from sleep this time, and whatever he'd been dealing with at 2 a.m. had apparently not finished. Listen closely.
Raza, son las 3 de la mañana, se siguen escuchando muchos ruidos allá afuera. Quieren abrir la puerta, raza. ¿Qué está pasando? Ay, Dios mío.
A violent crash erupts from the dark room adjacent to the bedroom, something heavy hitting the floor with enough force to send him scrambling for the door, gasping, fumbling with the handle, unable even to look back at what caused it. The sounds in the first clip were loud and frightening, but this one lands differently because he was asleep when it started, which means whatever is happening in that apartment isn't waiting for him to be watching anymore. Some who've followed cases like this believe that shift from activity that occurs while the witness is awake and filming to activity that interrupts sleep signals a deeper level of presence, something less like background noise and more like deliberate intrusion. Skeptics will argue it's a neighbor, a settling building, anything that doesn't require a paranormal explanation. But if you've watched both clips back to back, you already know what question is sitting at the back of your mind. And if you're enjoying watching this video, like and subscribe. At 3 in the morning, alone in that apartment, what would you actually do? In this next clip, a woman is parked outside at night, filming from inside her car, and she's clearly shaken. She describes watching something move across her rearview mirror while she was sitting in the vehicle, something that tracked from the back of the car toward the front, visible both through the mirror and from outside the window. According to her, every time she looked away, she'd lose it. But when she looked back, it was closer. Look closely at her side mirror. You'll see what looks like 3 shadow beings.
I understand this is probably gonna sound insane or look like a blur to you, but I was crying. I watched this thing move across in my rearview mirror when I was driving back of my car to the front. I could see it from outside and in the mirror. I got out of my car, like staring at me, but if I looked away, I couldn't find it until it was closer. I have never felt fear like this. The hair on my arms was standing up. I was crying on the phone with my mom, waiting for my stepdad to come over because I couldn't believe this is what I really saw.
Her voice barely holds together as she recounts it. She says she's never felt fear like that in her life, that the hair on her arms was standing up, that she ended up on the phone with her mother, waiting for her stepfather to come over because she couldn't process what she'd just seen. That ambiguity is exactly what makes this so difficult to dismiss. Some viewers think the distress in her voice alone tells you everything. That kind of fear is hard to fake. Others believe she may have encountered what's sometimes described as a shadow entity, something that exists at the edge of perception and retreats the moment you focus on it directly. You decide. In this next clip, a man has been dealing with a relentless and escalating pattern inside his apartment, specifically centered around the doors, and not as a one-off event that could be brushed off and forgotten, but a sustained, ongoing situation that has pushed him to the point of grabbing his phone every time it starts. The first piece of footage is barely 8 seconds, but it's the sound that stops you cold. Watch. A rapid rhythmic clicking and tapping emanates from the door itself, persistent, almost mechanical, like something working at the latch from the other side, and it stops the exact instant his hand makes contact with the handle, not before, not a moment after, which is the detail that moves it out of the category of a loose mechanism and into something that feels more like a response. Like whatever was doing, it knew he was there. It didn't stay contained to the door. Shortly after, he finds his 2 dining chairs pulled out from the table and positioned at odd angles in the middle of the room, and his immediate reaction makes clear he didn't leave them that way. His cat Rory is visible nearby, and skeptics pointed to that immediately, but 2 heavy dining chairs displaced simultaneously at those angles from a single small cat is a stretch that most viewers weren't willing to make.
What the fuck?
The third clip is the longest and most detailed piece of footage he's captured, and it's where the pattern becomes impossible to dismiss. For over a minute, the door handle jiggles up and down on its own, rhythmically, audibly, relentlessly, while persistent knocking runs underneath it the entire time. He grabs the handle and the sounds stop. He lets go and they start again. He opens the door to an empty hallway, closes it, and within seconds, it starts back up, more frantic than before. And then a crash from the living room. And when he turns around, the cat tunnel that had been lying on the floor is sitting on top of the couch. "I know Rory didn't do that," he says, and you can hear the fear settling in behind the disbelief.
See, it's still happening. Honestly, this is all the time. Whoa, Jesus. The cat scared the shit out of me. What the fuck? Rory, you were really scaring the shit out of me. Fuck. I know Rory didn't do that. What the fuck fuck is going on? What the fuck happened, Rory?
In paranormal research, this specific progression, isolated sounds, giving way to object displacement, activity concentrated around thresholds and enclosed spaces, escalating in intensity over time, is one of the most consistently documented patterns in poltergeist cases. An entity that builds and releases energy through physical disturbance rather than visual appearance, testing boundaries repeatedly until it finds one that gives. And then, on another night, locked inside the bathroom, the door rattles violently in its frame for over 30 seconds straight. And when he finally gets it open and stands in the doorway, a clear and distinct sound of rapid footsteps runs away from him down the hallway, light and quick, moving with direction, there and then gone.
Right, so I'm just in the toilet, and as you can hear, the door's rattling. So I feel quite trapped. But I'm going to open it and see what happens. It would help if I actually unlocked the door, wouldn't it? Was that you? That couldn't have been you. Oh, fuck off.
That last detail is what changes everything, because a rattling door can be argued away, but footsteps running down an empty corridor have a specificity that's very hard to square with any environmental explanation. Whatever is in that apartment isn't just making noise anymore, it's moving through the space. It knows the layout, and it's been there long enough to stop being startled by him. So what do you think? Is this an intelligent presence, methodically testing every threshold in that apartment, or something residual and restless locked into the architecture of that specific space, unable to stop doing what it's always done? This next video was recorded inside a public restroom at the Forum at 1 in the morning by a man who says he'd been hearing noises he couldn't explain. He's alone in the building, or at least he thinks he is. It's his second night documenting strange activity in this location, and the sounds coming from inside the bathroom are what pulled him in there in the first place. He films the hallway, then turns the camera on himself, visibly nervous, explaining the situation in real time. Then he walks in, scans the counter and the mirrors, and points toward a row of red stall doors. No feet visible under any of them. He crouches low, angle dropping toward the floor gap, calling out, "Hello, is anyone there?" Nothing answers. Watch.
Día 2, nos siguen pasando cosas extrañas. Miren lo que va a pasar.
Es la 1 de la mañana, estoy en el baño de Forum, estoy completamente solo y estoy escuchando ruidos adentro del pinche baño. Vete a la verga, güey. Yo escuché ruidos que venían de ahí. Ay, cabrón, no mames. Verga, güey, ¿qué pedo? No hay nadie. No mames, ¿qué pedo? ¿Qué es eso? ¿Hola? ¿Hay alguien aquí? No mames, ¿qué pedo? ¿Hola? ¿Hola, hola? ¿Hola? No mames, no mames, no mames, no mames.
The second stall door swings violently open with a loud bang, and he bolts. But if you listen closely, just before the bang, there's something else. A faint, high-pitched breath, almost like a child's gasp, right before the door moves. Some viewers think it's a hidden accomplice pulling a string. Others aren't so sure, because whatever made that sound, it doesn't quite match anything you'd expect from a person standing on the other side of a door. This next video was recorded inside what appears to be a school. At night, completely empty, or at least it should have been. The man filming makes his way through the building with a flashlight, and right away, something's off. Inside a bathroom, he's barely started recording when a wooden door swings open on its own, slowly, with a long, drawn-out creak, and stops. He chuckles, almost nervous, and keeps moving. Outside, through a chain link fence, he spots a deer standing by the roadside, but that's not what catches his attention. In a lit window of a nearby building, one he says is locked, and alarmed, there's a dark, motionless silhouette standing inside, just watching. Then the crashes start. 2 separate rooms, 2 violent metallic bangs, both from just off camera, and you can hear the shock in his voice each time. Watch.
Esa puerta también. ¿Vieron? Dicen que mis videos son actuados, pero están viendo, no hay nadie. Estoy cerrando la puerta y miren, a lo lejos se ve como si estuviera alguien ahí. ¿Alcanzan a ver? El venado no, lo otro, ahí está. Y ahí ya no se supone que ya no hay nadie, vean. Ahí está alguien. Ya no hay nadie, ya puse la alarma y todo y vamos para que vean. Y miren, vengo a cerrar y ya me voy. ¡Uy, hijo de su puta madre!
What gets people most isn't the door or even the sounds. It's that final shot. The security camera footage left running in the hallway. At the far left end, a tall, thin, dark figure slowly peers around the corner, holds there for a second or two, then pulls back out of sight. Some viewers think it's a shadow person, a term used online and in paranormal communities to describe dark, humanoid shapes that appear briefly and seem aware they're being watched. Others aren't convinced it's anything more than a person who shouldn't be there. But if that's the case, where did they go? You decide. In the following clip you're about to watch, a man named Antonio is moving through the courtyard of an abandoned asylum at night, flashlight cutting through the dark, white-walled buildings, pressing in on either side, a bucket and broom sitting outside the entrance, like whoever left them there didn't plan on coming back for them. What makes this different from a standard urban exploration video is the caption, Antonio has been here before, which means this isn't someone stumbling into something unexpected, it's someone who already knows what this place feels like at night and chose to return anyway, and that distinction matters. He hesitates at the doorway, muttering to himself in Spanish, half talking himself in and half talking himself out before shifting into prayer, invoking the blood of Christ, commanding whatever is inside to stop before he's even seen anything yet, which tells you everything about what he was expecting to find in there. Watch.
Puta, no, chicos, esto está demasiado cargado, loco. Está de... ¡Ala, qué verga! ¿Qué? Vaya, ala, no sé, entro. Me dan ganas de entrar, se los juro, porque quiero... Pero... Ok. Nosotros venimos para esto. Nosotros venimos a grabar esto. Ok. La sangre de Cristo tiene poder. La sangre de Cristo tiene poder. Tú no tienes poder aquí. Estoy bañado en la sangre de Cristo, ¿entendiste? Alto demonio, basta, detente. ¡Basta, demonio! Te ordeno que te detengas. ¡Basta! Puta madre. No, chica, la mierda, loco. Tía, esa tía se está moviendo. Uy, no me jodas, no. No me jodas. No, por un momento pensé que había alguien ahí dentro. Uy, no. Pensé que había alguien adentro, loco. Te lo juro que yo pensé que me iba a topar con alguien adentro. ¡Mierda!
The office chair just inside the doorway rolls backward several feet on its own, smooth, deliberate, covering real distance before stopping deep in the dark, and Antonio screams at it in Spanish, ordering it to stop. Then it rotates. No one is in that room. That movement isn't a drift, and it isn't an uneven floor. It moves with intention, and the timing is the detail most viewers can't get past, because the chair doesn't react while he's walking the path or standing in the courtyard, it moves in the exact window between the end of his prayer and the moment he steps through that doorway, as if whatever is in that room was listening to every word and waiting for him to finish. Abandoned asylums are considered some of the most residually saturated environments in paranormal research. Decades of fear and suffering absorbed into the architecture, compounding long after the building empties out. But residual energy doesn't respond to prayer, and that chair didn't drift, it waited. So what do you think? Was Antonio walking into a space thick with trapped energy, or did something in that asylum hear his prayer and decide to answer it? This next set of clips comes from a series of videos shared by the same man, recorded across multiple early morning hours, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., sometimes pushing past dawn, all centered on the same claim, that La Llorona, the weeping woman of Mexican and Latin American folklore, had taken up residence in his home. For context, La Llorona is one of the most enduring figures in Hispanic tradition, a woman said to have drowned her own children in a fit of grief and rage, condemned to wander riverbanks and dark hallways forever after, wailing for the souls she can never reclaim. Parents have used her name for generations to keep children from straying out at night. She is not a casual boogeyman, so when this man starts invoking her name at 5 in the morning, locked in his bathroom, it sets a certain kind of stage. Watch.
5:23 de la mañana, gente, y ya está empezando a amanecer. Yo desde las 9 de la noche estoy metido acá en el baño. A mí no me jode. Acá recién pasó un ovni y mira acá está el duende, ¿eh? ¡Deja de estar golpeando! ¡No esté golpeando! ¡No esté golpeando! ¡No! ¡Ah, no! ¡Andate! Vos sos pelotudo, te parió un teletubi, idiota, ¿eh? ¡Andate!
What you just heard was a man who claims he's been trapped in his bathroom since 9 the previous night. That's roughly 8 hours. While something on the other side of that door bangs, throws objects into the room, and refuses to let him leave. A roll of toilet paper, then a pink bottle, both sailing in from just off camera, and his response is to hurl a small trash can toward the door and yell back in rapid, panicked Spanish. Skeptics will immediately point out that everything thrown enters the frame from just off screen, exactly where a second person standing beside the camera could be standing. Others think the 8-hour detail is what makes it harder to dismiss entirely. Who sets up that kind of backstory for a joke? The build-up that follows across the next few clips starts to paint a stranger picture. In the second recording, made around 5:20 a.m., as dawn was just beginning to bleed through the window, the same man grabs what appears to be a long, thin stick and walks toward a darkened doorway. Listen closely.
5:20 de la mañana, gente. Está empezando a amanecer. Miren lo que es. Miren, ahí está el reloj. Y para los que no creían en la Llorona, miren, me desperté por los lamentos de esta. Pero no vinimos acá para estar teniéndole miedo. Venimos a darle al fandom lo que siempre busca. Mamoncita, no, mamoncita. ¿Con que te vas a venir a esconder? No te piando. No esté piando. Levandum nerviosa. ¿Dónde estás? Salí. De donde quieras que estés, maldita. ¿No te das cuenta que ya nos cansaste con los pelos parados? Siempre lo mismo. Acá, se escuchó el ruido. Espectro. Baboso.
There's a dark shape visible in the doorway, vaguely humanoid, standing still, appearing to shift or retreat as he moves toward it. His approach is anything but afraid though. He taunts it in Spanish, recites what sounds like a parody of a magic spell, dares it to come out, and calls it a slimy spectre while making lightsaber sounds with his mouth. The comedic framing is deliberate, and it undercuts the eeriness of that figure in the doorway almost immediately. But here's the thing, the shape is there, and it does move. Whether that's a person, a shadow, or something else is genuinely difficult to say given the low light and shaky footage. By the third recording, made at 4:31 a.m. during a rainstorm, he's carrying a small wicker Christmas tree ornament and once again pointing his camera down a hallway toward a partially open door. Watch.
4:31 de la mañana, gente. Está lloviendo, miren lo que es. Y les voy a mostrar la Llorona. Y quiero que ustedes saquen su captura de pantalla. Acá tengo el arbolito navideño del económico, nomás de este que te regalan en cualquier basurero. Miren lo que es. Miren lo que es. Miren lo que es. Miren lo que es. Y no tiene pies, Miren lo que es. Pero acá no vinimos a tenerle miedo, gente. Acá vinimos a darle al verdadero fandom lo que siempre busca. ¿Dónde estás? ¿Por qué no salís? No, porque atrás de la puerta, puede esconderse atrás de la puerta. ¿Por qué no salís? ¿Por qué no salís? ¿Querés que te encanten los Jingle Bells? ¿Querés que te cante? Siempre lo mismo contigo, ¿no? Siempre apostando a que no te das, que sí, que te tengo miedo, ¿no? ¿Quieres asustar al próximo digo, Tengo el arbolito económico del económico acá. ¿Por qué no sales? ¿Por qué no sales de donde estás? Acá se escucha ruido, se escucha ruido, se escucha ruido, se escucha ruido, se escucha ruido. ¿Dónde estás? No te piando. No te piando.
The figure standing in that dark gap is tall, slender, and completely motionless, and he claims it has no feet, though the bottom of whatever it is stays out of frame. He rushes in anyway, lights come on, and he spends the rest of the clip searching a cluttered bedroom, yelling challenges, offering to sing jingle bells, demanding the entity show itself. No audio anomaly is captured. Nothing moves on its own. And yet, that initial image in the doorway, static, dark, upright, keeps nagging at you. The fourth clip was filmed at 2:21 a.m., the coldest and darkest of the bunch, and the tone shifts. Watch closely.
2:21 de la mañana, gente. Yo les voy a mostrar lo que es la Llorona. Está haciendo 2 grados bajo cero. Allá está el reloj, las 2:21 de la mañana. Miren lo que es. Miren, miren. Saquen sus capturas de pantalla. Miren, 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 no te piando. No te piando. Los seguidores me pidieron que diga esta frase. Padre nuestro. Escuchen, escuchen, escuchen. Escuchen. ¿Dónde estás? ¿Dónde estás? Vení, salí acá. Tienen que tener cuidado, gente, que no le pique. Tienen que tener cuidado que no le vaya a picar, gente. Allá está, miren, atrás de la ventana, no te piando. ¿Por qué no venís acá? ¿Por qué no venís a pararte de mano, ¿Por qué no venís a pararte de mano? Te voy a hacer volver de donde viniste. Agarrá y andate, mal peinada.
Right after he shouts a prayer, Padre Nuestro, a high-pitched wailing scream erupts from somewhere off camera. It's sharp and unmistakable, the kind of sound that would make the hair stand up on your neck. He immediately yells for anyone watching to listen, and his breathing goes ragged and panicked in a way that feels less theatrical than the earlier clips. That scream is the closest any of these recordings get to the La Llorona mythos directly. Her legend is built entirely around that sound, a woman's wail near dark spaces and doorways in the small hours of the morning. Skeptics argue it's a sound effect dropped in during editing, and the timing, perfectly synchronized with the prayer, is almost too convenient. But if you were standing in that house at 2 a.m., you might not stop to consider the editing timeline. The fifth and final recording, made at 4:33 a.m., takes the whole series in a direction that's harder to categorize. Watch.
4:33 de la mañana, gente, ya está empezando a amanecer. Miren lo que son los pollitos, cómo ya están cantando. Y a la gente que no cree en la Llorona, miren lo que es eso. Miren lo que es. Miren lo que es, cómo se está moviendo para todos lados, como que parece que tiene Parkinson ahí. Pero acá no vinimos a tenerle miedo, vinimos a darle al fandom lo que siempre busca. A ver. Con que escondiéndose, No, 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 no. Acá te mando una nudu, por la duda. Y te mando otro regalo por si te querés venir a vivir acá. Siempre lo mismo con vos. Siempre lo mismo con vos. Te voy a traer un acondicionador. A ver si te pones un poco en el pelo, porque las veces que vengo acá tenés los pelos parados. ¡Ridícula! Te reprendo en el nombre de todos los santos que pueden haber en el mundo. Siempre lo mismo con vos. Yo me miré todos los capítulos de las Tortugas Ninjas.
Taken together, what this series actually represents is genuinely difficult to pin down. 5 videos that oscillate between something that might be a real experience and something that might be elaborate, deliberately funny performance art built around one of the most potent figures in Latin American folklore. Whether or not La Llorona has anything to do with any of it, you be the judge. The following video was recorded inside an unfinished house during what appeared to be a routine walkthrough. A man moving through empty rooms, checking around corners, calling out into the silence the way most of us probably would if we felt like something was off. The house is under active construction, tools and paint cans scattered across the floors, new cabinets still waiting to be finished, a dark concrete staircase leading down into a basement that he approaches cautiously from the very first frame. He keeps calling out, "Hello? Anybody here?" Moving from room to room, his footsteps loud on the new woodlook flooring, the whole place feeling oddly tense despite being completely empty. Then something small happens first. A long piece of metal trim, balanced on the edge of the kitchen island, begins to slowly slide and drops to the floor with a soft thud, just enough to make him stop. He says, "What the heck is that?" and edges toward a bedroom doorway, still calling out, "Watch."
Hello? Hello? Anybody here? Hello? Hello? The heck is that? Hello? Who is it?
What follows is a sequence that's hard to process even on a second viewing. Two loud, sharp bangs erupt from off camera. Then an interior hallway door slams shut with violent force. And not slowly, not drifting, but snapping shut as if something threw it. Seconds later, the basement door slams shut behind him. He shouts, "Who is it?" And then a metallic clanging sound starts from inside that now closed basement. He screams and runs, dropping the phone completely, leaving the camera on the floor pointing up at the ceiling. And then an enormous crash erupts from somewhere above, like something structural gave way or was thrown. The camera sits there alone for over a minute, and then something weird happens. The phone spins by itself. After a while, he comes back, out of breath and visibly shaken, to pick up his phone. Some viewers have argued the metal trim sliding was a natural event, precarious placement, vibration from footsteps, but the door slamming sequence is harder to dismiss. Poltergeist activity, according to many paranormal researchers, often follows exactly this kind of pattern. Not one event, but a rapid chain of them, as if something is escalating deliberately, pushing harder each time it's acknowledged. The second clip picks up somewhere similar in energy. At nighttime, in what appears to be a residential home, a man moves through the house with his phone, checking each room: a downstairs bedroom, a cluttered room, a laundry area, then down into a basement living space. You can hear a cough, a creak, the ambient quiet of a house at night. Then at 43 seconds, every light in the house goes out at once. Listen closely. What he finds when he makes it back upstairs is what stops you cold. The refrigerator door is standing wide open. A wooden dining chair has been placed on top of the table. A framed picture on the wall is now hanging at a severe angle. And in the kitchen, a large knife is standing upright, blade stabbed down into a cutting board. None of those things were like that before he went downstairs. The sound design throughout this clip, a low droning hum, a high-pitched screech when the lights cut, does feel added, and the progression of reveals follows a structure that's almost too clean, too cinematic. Some viewers called it staged almost immediately. But here's the thing, the knife in the cutting board standing perfectly upright is the kind of image that stays with you regardless of what you believe about it. In poltergeist cases, sharp objects being positioned or moved deliberately is one of the most documented and most disturbing categories of reported activity, with some traditions interpreting it as a specific kind of threat, not random chaos, but something intentional and directed. Whether both of these clips represent genuine events or carefully constructed moments, the pattern they share is unmistakable. A house that seems quiet, a man alone, and then everything happening at once. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. And if you're enjoying watching this video, like and subscribe. Because in both cases, whatever the explanation, neither man stuck around long enough to find out what came next. In the following clip you're about to watch, it's 3 in the morning inside a family home, completely quiet, nothing unusual in the air, and then, just before everything breaks loose, a distorted electronic sound begins bleeding through the silence. Something like a voice caught between static and dead frequencies, faint enough to almost dismiss. And then this happens. That distorted voice cutting through the silence right before it all broke loose is the detail that sits with you longest. Because in paranormal research, electronic interference immediately preceding a visual manifestation is considered one of the stronger indicators of an intelligent presence drawing on electromagnetic energy to make itself visible, pulling from whatever power source is available in the environment right before it crosses the threshold into something the human eye can register. A presence that announces itself through static before it appears is one that understands the mechanics of its own manifestation, which puts it in a very different category from something residual or passive. In multiple documented cases, this exact sequence, distorted audio followed by a visual apparition, has been associated with entities that are not only intelligent but deliberate. Ones that choose the hour, choose the location, and choose who sees them. 3 in the morning, a dark hallway, and something that let the static go first. So what do you think? Was that voice the sound of something gathering enough energy to finally be seen, or a warning that nobody in that house was meant to hear? In this next clip, a woman describes what she believes she caught on a family sleigh ride in Deer Valley, a nighttime outing through snowy, wooded mountains with her husband, 2 kids, and 2 sleigh drivers. That's it. No one else around for miles. She says she considers herself spiritually aware, but this was the first time she had anything she could actually point to on camera. The clip itself is only a few seconds of ordinary family footage. Kids bundled under a blanket, dark trees rolling past, her husband smiling over at the camera. Nothing looks wrong at all. Listen closely.
I caught a mimic on camera pretending to be my child. And I know that sounds so crazy, but I'm about to play this video for you so that you can watch it yourself. And I consider myself pretty spiritually awake. I'm an intuitive, but this is the first time that I actually have physical evidence. And I've watched this video many times and I still have yet to come up with a rational or logical explanation as to what this voice is. In this video, my family and I are on a sleigh ride in Deer Valley, and we are in the middle of the mountains. There is no one around us. The only people on this sleigh are me, my husband, the 2 children that you see, and the 2 drivers, who are 2 grown men. Yet in the first 5 seconds of the video, you clearly hear a loud voice that says, "Hello, Daddy." This voice is clearly not my daughter's voice because you can see her mouth in the video, it doesn't move. And some may argue that this voice is my son's voice because his mouth is covered up. But if you watch the video, you can see that my son starts speaking towards the end and it's very muffled. It's in complete contrast to this loud, crisp, clear voice that you hear in the beginning. And additionally, this voice seems to have like a weird British Victorian accent. I don't even know what kind of accent it is. And my son does not speak like that. But yeah, just watch this video and let me know what you think.
Hello, Daddy.
A little warmer over there.
It's beautiful. Oh, fun. Getting exercise. No, to my eye. Hello,
At around 1 minute and 34 seconds into the recording, a voice cuts through the ambient sounds of the moving sleigh, high-pitched, childlike, unmistakably clear, saying, "Hello, Daddy." The girl's mouth isn't moving when it happens, and if you focus on the boy, his voice later in the clip is completely muffled by his face covering, making it nearly impossible he produced something that crisp and theatrical. She describes the accent as having a strange, almost old-fashioned quality, not American, almost Victorian in its delivery. That description is what stops people in the comments. A mimic, in paranormal circles, refers to an entity believed to copy the voices or appearance of people close to you, sometimes a child, sometimes a family member, often in an attempt to get a response. And whatever spoke on that sleigh, it knew exactly what to say. In the following clip you're about to watch, a man has been documenting what he started calling the Shadow Man, an entity that has been making itself known in increasingly aggressive ways over a period of weeks. And by the time he started filming, the activity had already moved well past the point of easy dismissal. He'd been hearing scratching coming from the bathroom at night, set his phone on the floor to capture whatever was making it, and what showed up in the doorway is the kind of thing that reframes everything that came after. Watch.
So I've been hearing some strange noises coming from this bathroom. And so I'm going to set up this camera to record and see if we catch anything. I've never caught anything on camera before, so I'm hoping that this might be the first time, but kind of sounds like scratches.
A tall, dark, humanoid silhouette holds its position in the bathroom doorway. Not translucent, not misty, but darker than the space around it. The kind of solid absence that multiple cultural traditions describe in exactly the same way. A shadow that has taken on a shape and decided to stay in it. Some researchers connect phenomena like this to the concept of jinn in Middle Eastern folklore, entities believed to exist parallel to the human world and capable of appearing in darkened spaces. Whatever this was, it didn't move away. It stayed. That changed everything. In the days that followed, the activity didn't settle. It got louder. The man began sharing updates, and by the next one, he was no longer alone in noticing something was wrong. Listen closely.
Okay guys, I think I fucked up a little bit. Do you hear that? What the fuck is that? Charlie, the cat's right here. She doesn't seem to be worried about it.
A persistent, rhythmic rattling and scraping sound fills the room, originating from the direction of a closed door and dresser just off camera, while his cat, completely alert, body rigid, sits on the bed and stares unblinking in the exact same direction. Animals don't perform unease. That cat's fixed, tense stare is the kind of corroboration that viewers always point to because it confirms the sound had a presence, a location, something the cat could sense even when the camera couldn't catch it visually. The rattling was continuous, stopping only when the man's visible distress peaked, as if whatever was doing it knew it had his full attention. By third update, he'd had enough. Sleep deprived and visibly worn down, he decided to confront it directly, walking toward the hallway camera in hand, telling whatever was there that it wasn't welcome anymore. Watch closely.
All right. I appreciate all the well wishes. I haven't been getting great sleep lately. I don't know if it's because of this, but I'm going to take your advice. It's been slamming the doors again this morning. I'm just going to tell it to get the fuck out of here. Okay? All right, this is it. You are not welcome here. You need to leave. We are done with your bullshit. We are not going to take it anymore. Okay? You need to get the fuck out. No, this is some fucking bullshit.
A human-shaped figure stands perfectly still in the lit doorway at the end of a dark hall, and then a low, guttural growl comes from its direction before the door slams shut with force, sending the man running toward it in alarm. A growl, not a creak, not a rattle, a growl. Skeptics will argue the audio was added in post, that the silhouette was a person standing just inside the bathroom, and the slam was timed for effect. But for viewers who'd been following this series from the beginning, this clip felt less like a scare and more like a response, the entity reacting to being told to leave. That distinction matters because it shifts the nature of what's being described here from a passive haunting to something that listens, something that communicates on its own terms. And then came update 12. By this point, a full week had passed without significant activity, and then, one night, he heard whispering coming from the bathroom. Multiple voices, he says, overlapping, like a conversation happening just out of reach. He approached slowly in the dark, phone recording. Watch.
Okay, I don't know if you can hear this. I'm gonna try and be really quiet. Is somebody in there?
Indistinct, layered whispering can be heard coming from the completely dark and empty bathroom. And when he finally asks out loud whether someone is in there, the whispering stops instantly and is replaced by loud, raspy, heavy breathing that sounds uncomfortably close to the microphone. He rushes in, flicks the light, pulls the shower curtain aside, and the bathroom is empty, no one there. What makes this harder to explain isn't just the sounds themselves, it's the responsiveness. The whispers stopped the moment he asked the question. Something in that bathroom was aware of him, tracking him down the hallway, and chose to change from voices to breathing the instant it was directly addressed. If you've been watching this series from the beginning, the pattern is impossible to ignore. Each update escalates, each event becomes more direct, more communicative, more confrontational. Whatever this man is living with, it's not fading. The question that keeps coming back is a simple one. If you told it to leave and it growled back at you, what exactly do you say next? This next video was recorded inside what appears to be a private home at night by a man who's been dealing with escalating paranormal activity. Not the subtle, easy to dismiss kind, but the kind that responds when you talk back to it. He's walking through the house with a camera, moving from a second floor landing down toward the entryway, speaking out loud to whatever might be listening, telling it, calmly but firmly, that it can't touch him, that God's protection is with him. And up to that point, the house answers back with sharp cracking sounds, loud pops, a chandelier moving, the kind of noise that could maybe be explained away if it weren't so relentless. Then a door slams violently, and he moves into one of the rooms to investigate.
You know I have the power and the protection of God with me, so you can't do anything else to me, can you? You can close doors, you can make noises, you can move the chandelier. Room. So my camera usually shuts off. Who are you? Who are you?
What you just heard isn't background noise. It's a building confrontation, a deep, disembodied groan, a heavy bang, and then a faint, raspy whisper that seems to directly answer when he asks, "Who are you?" Not with silence, but with the same question thrown right back at him. And then it erupts. Violent crashing, thuds, scraping, a chaotic wall of sound coming from somewhere just off camera with no visible source. Some people who've followed cases like this point to the escalation pattern as a key detail. The idea that whatever is in the house isn't passive, it's reactive. And it appears to intensify the more it's challenged or named. Skeptics will say the sounds could be post-production audio layered in for effect. But what's harder to dismiss is the man's real-time reaction, the heavy breathing, the startled questions, the moment where his voice shifts from confident to genuinely rattled. Whatever was in that house didn't seem satisfied with just being heard. Now, in a second clip from this same location, the same man turns his camera down a hallway from an upper landing, and he says something that sets the whole thing up. Every time I turn off the light, there's like a shadow in there. He wants someone else to confirm it.
Alright, tell me I'm on fucking crack. Every time I turn off the light, there's like a shadow there. Watch. See that? Fuck. What the fuck? Tell me I'm not on fucking crack, dude. No. What, dude?
When the light goes off, a tall, dark, featureless silhouette is standing motionlessly in the open doorway at the far end of the hall. When the lights come back on, it's gone. He walks toward it anyway. Then the light goes off a second time, and it's back, standing in the exact same spot, just as still, just as opaque. Some would call this a shadow person, a term used in paranormal communities to describe humanoid, dark figures that appear to observe rather than act. Entities described across multiple cultural traditions, including in Middle Eastern folklore, where similar beings are associated with jinn. Others think the figure is digitally added, pointing to the heavily edited sound design in the clip. But that repeating behavior, same location, same stance, appearing only in the dark, is exactly what makes it so hard to look away. I've watched this one more than once, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. What do you think is standing in that doorway? Like and subscribe if you're enjoying watching this video, because between the audio assault in the first clip and the silent, waiting figure in the second, whatever this is, it doesn't seem like it's done yet. In the following clip you're about to watch, a security camera captures a motorcyclist traveling along a quiet road in Mexico in the early hours of the morning. Just another commute? Nothing about it suggesting this would be anything other than an ordinary day. And then between one frame and the next, the motorcycle is down and the rider is gone. What draws people's attention isn't the crash itself, it's what appears near the wreckage afterward. A dark, humanoid shadow materializes at the scene, moves away from it with what looks like direction and purpose, travels several feet, and then simply isn't there anymore. Watch. Reports confirm one person died at that location. Viewers who slowed the footage down frame by frame were the first to notice it, and once you see it, it's difficult to look past. Skeptics point to compression artifacts and pareidolia, the brain's tendency to find human shapes in ambiguous visual information, and those are fair arguments for a lot of footage that circulates online. But artifacts don't move with consistent direction, and pareidolia doesn't produce a shape that appears specifically after a crash and disappears only after it has traveled a deliberate distance from the wreckage. In paranormal research, footage like this sits in one of the rarest and most debated categories. The possible capture of something departing a body at the moment of death, consciousness leaving in the only way it knows how, completely unaware that the body it just left behind isn't getting back up. That last part is what lingers, because whatever that shadow was, it moved away from the wreckage like someone who still had somewhere to be. So what do you think? Did that camera accidentally document the last moments of someone who had no idea it was their last day? In this next clip, we're following a man named Chris, a ghost hunter who had been hearing enough accounts about skinwalker activity in a specific area that he decided to go investigate it himself, equipment in hand, the kind of person who moves toward the thing everyone else is running from. He brings a spirit communication device with him, the kind that picks up and translates electromagnetic fluctuations into audible words. And what comes through on that device when he gets to the location stops him cold. Voices asking him to come help, drawing him further in with exactly the kind of appeal that's hardest to ignore and easiest to follow into somewhere you shouldn't be. Watch.
Yo. Hello? Did somebody just walk through there? Hey, if you're there, I'm not here. I'm just doing some ghost hunting stuff. Somebody just walked right through there. She will not.
My name is Fred.
Your name is Fred? Hi, Fred. Many years ago. Did you guys see that or am I tripping? Say your name. My name is Chris. What's your name? What the fuck, bro? Okay. Help us talk? Okay. Holy shit. That door fucking opened. That door opened by itself. That door opened by itself. That fucking door opened by itself. What the fuck, bro? Oh no.
Hiding in the dark.
Hiding in the dark? The fucking door opened.
And then he runs. Whatever he sees in there overrides every instinct that brought him to that location in the first place. And Chris, a man who showed up to a skinwalker site on purpose with recording equipment at night, decides that whatever is happening is beyond what he came prepared for. Now here's what makes skinwalker encounters specifically so difficult to investigate and so hard to dismiss. In Navajo tradition, a skinwalker is not a ghost or a residual energy. It is an intelligent, shape-shifting entity that actively hunts, that learns the behavior and vocalizations of its targets, and that uses mimicry as a primary tool, replicating human voices, animal sounds, and cries of distress specifically to lure people toward it. The request to come help coming through that device fits that pattern almost precisely. Not a threat, not a warning, but an invitation wrapped in vulnerability. The exact kind of signal designed to pull someone deeper into isolated territory. What makes it worse is that skinwalkers across documented accounts are said to be most active at the threshold, doorways, tree lines, the edge of light and dark. And a door opening on its own, in that context, isn't a poltergeist moment. It's something marking a boundary and making clear it can cross it whenever it chooses. Chris came looking for a skinwalker. Based on what he ran from, it's worth asking whether it was already looking for him. So what do you think? Did Chris get closer to something real than any of his equipment was ever designed to handle? Or is there a less ancient explanation for what came through on that device? In this next clip, a security guard is doing his rounds inside a residential subdivision in Leon, Guanajuato. Gated community, empty houses. The kind of assignment where the biggest concern is usually staying awake through the quiet hours of the early morning. He's supposed to be completely alone. And then he starts hearing children. Not one child, not a sound that could be a television left on somewhere or an animal in the walls. Children, voices coming from inside an empty house during the early hours of the morning in a subdivision where no one should be present, let alone kids awake and making noise at that hour. He gets it on camera, and what he captured has been difficult for people to explain away. In paranormal research, the sound of children in locations where no children are present is one of the most consistently reported and most deeply unsettling categories of auditory phenomena, partly because of how specific and unmistakable the sound of a child's voice is, and partly because of what it implies about whatever is producing it. In Latin American folk tradition, disembodied children's voices heard in empty buildings during the early hours are frequently associated with the souls of children who died in or near that location, tied to the space and unable to move on, replaying fragments of a life that ended before it was finished. Others believe entities use the sound of children specifically because it triggers a protective instinct, drawing people toward the source rather than away from it, which in an empty subdivision in the middle of the night is exactly the kind of direction you don't want to be pulled. So what do you think? Was this guard hearing something that's been in that subdivision long before the houses were built? Or is there something in those empty rooms that learned a very long time ago exactly which sound gets people to come closer? In this next clip, Frank, a paranormal investigator who seeks out some of the most historically charged locations he can find, has made his way into an abandoned hospital with an incinerator room that already carries the kind of atmosphere that makes you want to keep your back to the wall. He's got a thermal camera with him, the kind that reads heat signatures rather than light. And what it picks up in that hallway is not something he was prepared to find. Watch.
Okay, and this is what the thermal camera sees. Can you peek at me one more time? Look at that. It just gets really blue, and that's a cold signature. Look at that. And then it goes away. I'm gonna try it again. Here we go. There we go. Are you the one that she was talking about? I swear if I see an actual face peek out through there, I might not be as brave. Look. Look at that. That is literally the corner of the... Oh my God. Alright, I'm gonna walk up towards it. I wanna make sure, bring up my brightness. This hospital is amazing. I am definitely gonna be back here. I haven't even shown you guys the crematorium. The thing that gets me a little bit nervous about the crematorium is that, oh, it's sticky. This is what kind of sounded like the thumping sound. You can see how corroded this whole area is, and this is where it actually starts to stink a lot. And that's because of what they burnt down here as far as remains. But look at this. This is the cremation room. All right. So inside these things here, is where they would throw body parts, either children body parts or legs and arms, and they'll throw it into incineration. See? Incineration. And this is to see if it burnt up or not. Now the crazy thing is that there's ashes still inside. Look. Those are actual ashes. Oh, that's a big spider there. Oh, the creepiest thing happened. I was putting this down and it happened off camera. But the moment I put the the K2 down, I hear a big boom. I'm just hoping it happens again. You hear it? Let me make sure it's on. Hello? What the hell is that? I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up. Hello? Hello? Okay, that is creepy. Hello? Are you making noises? What the hell is that? Right now, you guys are inside. Listen. I'm trying to see if I could hear anything.
A thermal camera doesn't produce shapes from shadows or turn dust into figures. It reads temperature and temperature only, which is exactly what makes what Frank captured so difficult to dismiss. Something in that hallway is responding to him directly, and whatever it is, understands the difference between being watched and being ignored. In paranormal research, thermal anomalies that display humanoid form and respond to direct communication are considered some of the strongest indicators of an intelligent presence. Not residual energy running on a loop, but something that can hear and react in real time. Abandoned hospitals carry decades of fear, pain, and death concentrated within the same walls. The kind of accumulated weight that creates the exact conditions for a presence to form and sustain itself long after the building empties out. An incinerator room specifically carries a particular heaviness, given what those spaces were used for and what was lost inside them. Whatever Frank's thermal camera picked up in that hallway knew how to be seen and knew exactly when it wanted to disappear. So what do you think? Is this a former patient still wandering those corridors, or something that has been feeding off that building's energy for a very long time? In this next clip, a woman steps outside late at night to let her dog do its business. The most routine, unremarkable errand imaginable. The kind of thing you do half asleep without a second thought. And then something materializes out of thin air in the darkness ahead of her and starts moving in her direction. Watch. She doesn't hesitate. She's back inside that house before whatever it is can close the distance. And when the camera catches the spot where it was standing moments later, there's nothing there, gone as suddenly and completely as it appeared, leaving no trace of how it arrived or where it went. That specific combination, materialization from nothing, directional movement toward a person, and then a clean disappearance, is what separates this from a prowler or a trespasser, because a physical person doesn't appear out of empty air and doesn't vanish without moving out of frame. In paranormal research, entities that manifest suddenly in outdoor spaces and move toward a target before disappearing are often associated with what some traditions describe as a fetch or an approacher, a presence that becomes visible only when it has already decided to engage and disappears the moment its window closes. The fact that her dog was right there and the interaction happened that fast suggests whatever this was had been in that space before she stepped out, already present, already aware of her, just waiting for the right moment to show itself. So what do you think? Was something outside that house waiting for her specifically, or did she just step into the wrong patch of darkness at the wrong time? In the following clip you're about to watch, a man who lives alone in a house built in the 1940s, has been hearing children laughing and playing in his basement for long enough that it's become a pattern he can no longer rationalize away. And on this particular day, he decides he's done ignoring it. He walks to the basement door, reaches for the old brass doorknob, and calls down the stairs in a firm voice, telling whatever's down there to knock it off. And that's when the footsteps start. Fast, deliberate, coming up the stairs toward the door with no visible body attached to them. So he slams it shut. Then this happens.
I hear you down there. Knock it off. Stop! Stop it!
Oh, no.
In paranormal research, child entities that move between floors, respond to commands, and vanish without trace are among the most unnerving categories of domestic haunting. Not because they present as threatening, but because the combination of something innocent sounding and something physically impossible occupying the same space creates a kind of cognitive dissonance that's very hard to shake. A house built in the 40s has had decades of lives move through it, and not all of them finished cleanly. So what do you think? Is there a little girl in that house who never found her way out? Or is something in that basement using the sound of laughter specifically because it knows he won't run from a child? In this next clip, a man is completely alone in his house late at night when something in his basement starts to disturb his peace. For context, whatever that thing is has been keeping him up for days. He says it started as a faint sound, the kind you convince yourself is the house settling or a neighbor's TV bleeding through the walls. But it kept coming back, night after night, and it kept getting louder. He describes it as crying, like a baby wailing, sometimes accompanied by what sounds like someone humming to calm that baby down. To make that stranger, he lives by himself. There's no baby, there's no one else. So he does what a lot of people in his situation probably shouldn't do. He grabs his camera, turns off the lights, and goes to investigate. If you listen carefully, once the clip starts, you'll hear exactly what he's been describing before he even has to explain it. The bells he's hung on the basement door are a detail worth paying attention to too, a folk practice used in some traditions to alert against spirits passing through. Watch.
Guys, something's on the basement. Anybody down there? Hello? Hello? Guys, I have been noticing that at nighttime when I shut the lights off, I don't know if you can hear it. There has been some crying and somebody humming like calming a baby down. And I live by myself. There's literally nobody here in my house. And I've been noticing that there's been a lot of crying. Lots of crying. Can you guys hear it? I wonder where it's coming from and I'm just curious. Let's check it out. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, I command the demons to leave my house immediately. Immediately. I command the demons to leave my house immediately. Oh, that sounds like it's coming from the basement. Oi. Guys, it looks like it's coming from the basement. Oh, fuck! Holy shit! Holy fuck! That was a big scream. Oh shit! Holy fuck! Oh shit! Holy fuck!
Some people believe the crying is consistent with what's described in certain Latin American traditions as the presence of La Llorona, the weeping woman, a spirit believed to wander at night, mourning and crying. Skeptics point to the clean audio quality and argue the sounds are too well timed to be accidental. But that explanation gets harder to hold on to when you hear what comes out of that basement. What do you think is behind that door? Like and subscribe if you're enjoying watching this video. The bells never rang, and whatever was on the other side of it didn't need a door to make itself known. In this next clip, a static security camera captured what appears to be an entirely ordinary living room. A couch draped with blankets, a leather recliner, a small Christmas tree in the corner. A completely still, empty scene with nobody inside. The footage is time-stamped January 10th of 2026, and for nearly 30 full seconds, not a single thing moves, nothing shifts, nothing falls. But the audio is a different story entirely. Listen closely. What you just heard in that empty room is a sequence of sounds that starts with what many describe as a high-pitched, frantic scream, something that carries the cadence of "Leave me alone" before collapsing into low, guttural moaning and overlapping wails that fluctuate in pitch and intensity. Near the end, a rasping voice seems to say, "Get out of here." Not one person was in that room. Some viewers think this is residual audio, a paranormal theory suggesting that intense emotional trauma can somehow imprint itself onto a location and replay without warning, like a recording embedded in the walls themselves. Others believe whatever produced those sounds wasn't residual at all, but active, reactive, and fully aware the camera was running. The fact that the room stays completely still while all of that unfolds makes it somehow harder to dismiss, not easier. So what do you think was in there? In the following clip you're about to watch, a man is standing in a dark hallway late at night, looking into his unlit kitchen, and through the faint glow coming through the window, he can just make out a silhouette moving in there, the steady rhythmic sound of a knife on a cutting board filling the silence. He assumes it's his girlfriend, calls out to her casually, asking what she's doing, cooking in the dark. Watch.
Babe, what are you doing in the dark?
The moment the lights come on, the kitchen is completely empty. No one at the counter, no one anywhere in the room, nothing on the cutting board, no explanation for the sound that was filling that space just seconds ago. He switches the lights back off, and she's there again, same spot, same motion, as if the light itself is what she can't exist inside. That specific detail, a presence that appears in darkness and vanishes under light, is one of the more consistently reported phenomena in residual haunting cases, where an energy imprint tied to a location replays the same actions in the same space on its own loop, completely indifferent to whoever is watching. In paranormal research, kitchens are considered particularly susceptible to this kind of residual activity, given the repetitive, emotionally charged nature of the tasks performed in them over years and decades. The same motions, the same sounds, worn so deeply into the fabric of a space that they outlast the person who made them. So what do you think? Is this a loop playing out from someone who used to live in that kitchen, or something that was never quite human to begin with? Now, in this next video, a man named Tristan had been dealing with something in his home that wasn't content to stay in one room or limit itself to one kind of disturbance. It moved through the house, it opened things, it threw things, and according to the narration, nothing he tried made any difference. The first incident starts in a narrow hallway at night, where he's following his cat with a handheld camera. The cat stops at the end of the hall and crouches down, staring at the gap beneath a closed door. And if you know anything about animals around paranormal activity, you already know that's not a good sign. Then the door handle begins to jiggle violently on its own, twisting up and down with force, before the door swings open entirely. He enters what turns out to be a laundry room and no one is there. Watch.
Ben là, je suis en train de me battre pour mettre les diagrammes et tous les chiffres passés.
Il faut que mon sommeil puisse partir dans mes modèles de courant. Je me sers de morceaux de métal bouclier pour y arriver. Avec un peu de chance, j'arriverai à toucher le fond. Et attacher ça à mon bras cassant. Si jamais j'accroche au fond, le bras cédera dans le corps de Yves et je récupère les...
What makes the second clip arguably more unsettling is that it's security camera footage. Static, ambient, no added sound design. Tristan, in a grey hoodie, walks toward a hallway entrance on the far right of the frame when a faint, semi-transparent figure, child-sized, hovering in the doorway, becomes visible for a few seconds before simply disappearing. Then, a wicker basket launches out of that same hallway with enough force to hit the wall. Many viewers watching this reached for the poltergeist label immediately, and it's easy to see why. Poltergeist activity in paranormal research tends to follow a specific pattern, escalating physical disturbances, objects thrown rather than simply moved, and an energy that seems almost deliberate rather than residual. Skeptics argue the basket could have been rigged, but the apparition appearing just before, it is harder to dismiss that easily. If you've been following cases like this, the child-shaped figure is what the comments couldn't let go of. So what exactly was standing in that doorway, and where did it go? In this next clip, a group of friends were all asleep when knocking woke them up at 3 in the morning. 4 heavy impacts, loud enough to pull everyone out of sleep at once. Their first thought was someone messing around outside, the kind of explanation you reach for at 3 in the morning because it's the only one that makes sense. In the morning, they pulled up the CCTV to find their answer, and what they found instead was a small cat sitting outside the closed restaurant, appearing in the frame with no visible entry, no jump, no walk-in, just there between one frame and the next as if it materialized. Watch. But here's what the poster wants you to pay attention to. Listen carefully for the moment the cat leaves, because not long after it disappears from the frame, the knocking starts again. The cat and the knocking are connected in a way that doesn't have a clean explanation, and the poster notes this isn't an isolated incident, that there has been a presence calling out around this location repeatedly, often enough that they're no longer surprised by it, just unsettled. In many Southeast Asian traditions, cats, particularly ones that appear and disappear without obvious explanation, are believed to carry spiritual significance, sometimes acting as vessels for wandering entities, or as indicators of a presence nearby that the human eye can't directly perceive. 3 knocks at 3 in the morning is a combination that carries weight across multiple traditions, widely associated with a deliberate spiritual provocation. So what do you think? Was that cat carrying something with it, or was it simply drawn to the same spot that something else had already claimed? 。 . 。 . 。 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . In the following clip you're about to watch, a woman wakes up in the middle of the night to the sound of something moving inside her walk-in closet. And then, from inside that darkness, she hears her husband's voice whispering her name, telling her to come to him. She freezes because her husband is lying right next to her in bed. She picks up her phone and starts filming. Watch.
Babe, come here. What? Come here. Oh my god. Don't look inside.
But the detail from the caption is what reframes everything. She notes that her husband seemed almost calm when he heard the voice. Not startled, not confused, almost as if this wasn't the first time. And she hasn't been able to stop sitting with one specific thought since. What if that voice in the closet really was her husband, trying not to alert whoever was lying next to her? In paranormal research, entities that mimic the voices of loved ones to lure people toward isolated spaces are considered among the most deliberately predatory forms of manifestation, patient, calculated, and deeply aware of exactly which voice will make you move without thinking. So what do you think? Was something occupying that bed? Or was something in that closet that already knew her husband's voice well enough to use it? This next video comes from a tattoo studio in Chihuahua, Mexico, where the owner had been receiving security alerts about unexplained movement and noise inside his shop for several days, enough that he says he hadn't been able to sleep. On the night of May 3rd of 2020, he returns to the studio after hours, phone in hand, to show viewers what's been happening. Inside, the room is lined with horror masks, a porcelain doll, and posters. And sitting flat in the middle of the wooden floor is a book titled El Diablo Me Obligó, The Devil Made Me Do It. He jokes about the ghost's creativity in choosing that particular title, then notices the room feels strangely cool despite it being a hot night outside in Chihuahua. He decides to go quiet so the security camera can record. Then his phone's light cuts out completely. Full battery, no explanation. Seconds later, a loud bang echoes through the darkness. Watch the camera sensor react to an unseen presence.
Buenas noches, amigos. Miren, me llegó una alerta de la cámara, ya la mandé a arreglar. Más esperar tantito. Me llegó una alerta de que había movimiento, que hubo ruido y movimiento. Me fijé que dejé la luz prendida de la lámpara que uso para los tatuajes. Nada más de que, como salí temprano, no me fijé que la había dejado prendida. Enfoca. Ahí está. Me llegó una alerta de que había movimiento adentro. Yo pensé que había sido la lámpara, pero no, que hubo movimiento aquí en el baño y hubo movimiento aparte. Yo oí ruidos. Son tiliches. Cabrón. Se cayó un libro, miren. Miren qué título escogió. Creativo, ¿no? El fantasma. Ay, caray. Miren. Está haciendo calor ahorita aquí en Chihuahua. Estuvieron los días frescos, pero ahorita está como sofocadito. Y aquí adentro está como fresco, raro. No sé si hayan prendido el aire o algo, pero se siente la vibra medio rara. Aquí está el espejín. quiero guardar un poco el silencio. Miren, ahí me está grabando la cámara. Okay. Ese fue el flash de mi teléfono. Y eso que sí traigo bastante batería. Ay, no mames. Se cerró la puerta. Oigan, nada más voy a apagar y retirarme porque estos días no he podido estar a gusto, la verdad. No hemos podido dormir y miren. Bueno, nada más quería venirles a enseñar un poquito de lo que pasa aquí en el local y de lo que ha sido... Agarra el perro. De lo que ha seguido sucediendo, no ha cambiado mucho, nada más se ha quedado un poco repetitivo, por decirlo así. Bueno, los dejo porque esto se está poniendo mal vibroso aquí adentro. Hasta luego y muchas gracias por ver.
Some viewers pointed to the orb as a classic light anomaly, the kind skeptics attribute to dust or insects, but the trajectory and brightness here don't behave that way. Others connected the book's title directly to the broader Mexican tradition of El Diablo, a figure in folklore associated with mischief, bargains, and making himself known in ways you can't ignore. The combination of the cold spot, the phone cutting out, the door slamming, and then the security footage catching both the orb and the flying book all in one night. That's a pattern, not a coincidence. So what exactly was in that studio with him? In the following clip you're about to watch, a Blink security camera mounted high on a wall captures something strange in the hallway of a home late at night. A teenager noticed his cat acting strange. Not the usual zoomies or chasing something across the floor, but deliberately trying to get his attention, persistent enough that he eventually did what you're apparently supposed to do when a cat leads you somewhere. He followed it. The cat takes him straight to his brother and sister's room, and he goes in. And then, after a few moments inside, he comes back out with an urgency that tells you everything you need to know about what he found in there. Not a slow walk, not a casual exit, but the kind of sprint that your body produces when your brain has already decided that whatever is behind you is not something you want to be near. Now, the camera doesn't show us what he saw inside that room, and honestly, that might be worse, because what he said he saw was a 7-foot-tall black figure standing in there, in his sibling's room, in a house where a cat apparently knew it was there before any person did. In paranormal research, Animals consistently demonstrate awareness of presences that humans can't perceive, registering something in the electromagnetic or sensory range that we lost access to somewhere along the way. And a cat that leads someone directly to the room where an entity is standing isn't acting randomly, it's communicating. So what do you think? Was there something 7 feet tall waiting in that room? Or did the cat lead him somewhere? His imagination did the rest of the work. In this next clip, a night security guard is doing his rounds at work. Glass door in front of him. The kind of quiet, uneventful shift that makes up most of the job. He's been working this post long enough that he knows every sound and every shadow in that building, which is exactly why he started filming when he noticed something he couldn't explain. He flips the camera to the front-facing view, points it toward the glass door, and what he catches on the other side of that glass stops him cold. Watch.
Es solo un video. El video. ¿Alguien vio los dedos?
Right there at the handle of the door, fingers, visible through the glass, pressed against it from the outside, and then slowly, deliberately withdrawn, pulled back into the darkness, the way you'd pull your hand away if you suddenly realized you'd been seen. Not a smear, not a reflection, not light playing off the surface. Fingers, with the kind of slow, intentional movement that puts them in a completely different category from anything environmental. And this isn't the first time he's noticed something at that door. He makes that clear. This is just the first time he had a camera running when it happened. In paranormal research, liminal spaces like building entrances, lobbies, and glass thresholds are considered hotspots for activity precisely because they exist between two states, inside and outside, safe and exposed, known and unknown. And whatever presses itself against that boundary isn't lost or wandering, it's probing. So what do you think? Is something testing that door from the other side? Or does this guard have a very human problem he hasn't fully accounted for yet? In this next clip, a woman is home alone in her apartment during the day when her doorbell rings. Not once, but repeatedly, with no one on the other side. She's filming on her phone, walking slowly toward her front door, and you can already hear in the way she moves that this isn't her first time dealing with something like this. Her voice, cautious at first, calls out in French, asking if anyone's there. The hallway outside is completely empty. She checks the staircase. Nothing. Watch.
Y a quelqu'un? Putain, ça va pas commencer comme ça tout le temps, j'en ai plein le cul.
The doorbell rings 3 times across less than a minute, and each time she opens that door, there's no one there. Not in the hallway, not on the stairs, not anywhere she can see. By the second ring, she sounds exhausted, muttering in French that she's sick of this, that she can't keep going through it. That detail is telling. This isn't shock. It's someone who's been worn down by repetition. Then the third ring hits, and the camera jerks violently as she lets out a sharp, terrified scream. There's something about the third ring that breaks her completely, maybe because she'd already confirmed the space was empty, and it rang anyway. Some believe this kind of recurring, disembodied doorbell activity is consistent with what paranormal researchers call a poltergeist, an entity associated less with haunting a location and more with directing its energy toward a specific person, often escalating over time. Skeptics would say a faulty wireless doorbell could explain it. But a faulty doorbell doesn't explain why she sounds like someone who's been fighting this battle alone for a very long time. So what do you think she's actually dealing with? The following videos appear to be captured by a group of men conducting what looks like a paranormal investigation inside a cluttered, dimly lit room, the kind of space that already feels charged before anything unusual happens, with old stained walls, worn furniture, and objects arranged almost as if they've been placed there intentionally. The men are speaking Romanian throughout, and at one point, one of them can be heard reciting what sounds like a religious confession, solemn, almost liturgical, which sets a tone that's hard to shake. Watch.
Mărturisesc că sunt vinovat focului de veci, viermilor neadormiți. Uai de mine, ce-a fost asta? Oi, să învârtească, om! Uai de mine, ai văzut? Doi, să învârtească. Mamă, frate, ce-a fost asta? Uite așa să învârtească, om. Vai de mine, dacă l-am... Vai, Leo, ce-a fost asta? Mamă, frate, am prins-o pe cameră, jur. Oi, hai-te, mă, că... Viermilor neadormiți. Uai de mine! Uai de mine, ce-a fost asta?
A wooden chair in the adjacent room violently tips over backwards with a loud crash, with no visible person anywhere near it, and the men immediately erupt into panicked shouting, one of them yelling that the chair spun on its own, another asking, what on earth just happened? The slow motion replay makes it even harder to dismiss, because you can see the full arc of the movement with nothing and no one initiating it. Some viewers think the prayer being recited at the exact moment of impact is the most unsettling detail, not because it's evidence of anything specific, but because it raises the question of whether something was already being invited in before the camera was even rolling. In Romanian folk tradition, reciting confessions aloud in a spiritually charged space is sometimes believed to provoke a response from entities that feed on guilt or unresolved spiritual debt. And if that chair moving was the beginning, what came next suggests it was far from over. Not long after, the activity shifted from a single object to something far more chaotic.
Gata, gata, adă farfurile repede. Adă repede farfurile. Adă repede, fac, gata, opriți tot. Uite, două căni, da. Gata, opriți-vă. Opriți înregistrarea. Cu plăcere, da, da. Băi, băi, băi.
2 white ceramic mugs are violently thrown from a cabinet on the far side of the room, one shattering completely on the floor, sending shards and reddish liquid across a striped rug. And then just as the men start to collect themselves, a second loud bang sends another object flying, one of them saying it struck his leg. The men's dialogue is raw and unfiltered, someone telling them to stop recording, another voice responding, possibly from a device in the room, with pleasure. That detail alone stopped a lot of viewers cold. Whether it came from a spirit box or an electronic device picking up a stray signal, nobody has been able to confirm it. But the pattern is hard to ignore. First a chair, now mugs, thrown with enough force to shatter and injure, which is exactly the kind of escalation poltergeist activity tends to follow, starting with isolated movements and progressing steadily toward objects making contact with people. The men's reactions, the way they scramble, the way one of them just says, enough, stop everything, don't read as performance. They investigated anyway. Watch closely.
Cu cutremur, mă. Ia, ia! Băi, fii atent! Vai de capul meu! Ia! Ia, că-o căzut tot! Ia, că-o căzut tot bastoanele, o căzut tot, băi, omule, băi! Ia bastonul. Ia bastonul din smântână, de unde? Că nu mai este niciun baston, nimic. Gata e. E gata e.
Ia vezi că și pune poate. Vezi, aici.
Nu ai mă, să dea draci dacă e ceva, tu ești nebun.
Azi voi lua pe bastonul ăla. Lasă un fiz de lume.
Nu e frate niciun baston nimic.
Iar bag lumina pe partea asta.
Na.
Bagă și după aia, bagă și după asta.
Na, că nu e nimic.
Nimic, a?
Nimica, frate, dispărut bastonul, iar gata.
Și de sub de acolo? Nimic. Nimic pe acolo, nimic. Uite căpușa asta deșerată. Și eu preotul. Bă, uitați-o leacă dulapul cum se mișcă singur, mă, frate, tu ești nebun. Ah! Unde-s, măi? Nu-i niciun baston. Uite. Uite țăpă ăsta, uite. Niciun baston, nimic. Uite. 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 Uite, cade bila jos, acum. Uite dulapul care se mișcă singur, uite, nu-i legat cu nimic, uite. Uite. Voi sunteți nebuni, băi? Băi, noi când v-am zis că... Băi, nu mai există, gata, încăpere. Nu mai există încăpere, ca să știți. Noi suntem numărul 1, suntem. Hai de mine, ce-a fost asta? Ce-a fost asta? Stay calm. Stay calm. Stay calm. Calm down.
Odată cu ce-odată.
Hai, au reușit, stați calmi. Gata, terminat-o, hai.
Stay calm.
Hai-mi bastonul pe înapoi. Trebuie să fac carte aici, sunt portal, îmi trebuie. Portalul îmi trebuie.
E sub dulap bastonul.
Objects on a small wooden cabinet begin vibrating and sliding on their own before two walking canes, propped against the wall, are forcefully thrown to the floor. Then the entire cabinet jolts and shakes as if grabbed from beneath, and a sharp, unexplained bang erupts from somewhere off camera, sending the men stumbling backward. One of them mentions closing a portal, which suggests they weren't just observing, but had been actively attempting some form of spiritual communication beforehand. And if something had been deliberately summoned, the escalating violence of these responses starts to feel less like random activity and more like something reacting with increasing irritation. The missing cane is arguably the strangest detail. Investigators can only account for one of the two that fell, and despite searching the area thoroughly, the second one never turns up on camera. A quiet footnote that somehow lands harder than the chaos around it. So what do you think? Was this group of men simply documenting a haunted space, or did they walk into that room and wake something up that had no interest in being observed? In this next clip, a woman is home alone at night, or at least she believes she is, when she notices something standing behind the frosted glass panel of her bathroom door. She's filming on her phone, her voice dropping to a hushed, anxious whisper as she explains in Spanish that she can see the shape from where she's standing, but the phone's reflection keeps getting in the way. She says she literally can't go to the bathroom in peace because of whoever or whatever is there. Then she moves through the house, down a dark hallway with light cutting in from a room at the far end, before showing her bedroom to prove a point. Watch.
De acá lo veo, pero el celular le da el reflejo. Literalmente no puedo ir al baño tranquila porque está él. Y no hay nadie en la casa. Nadie de nadie está en la casa.
Through the textured glass of that door, you can make out a dark, humanoid silhouette, a head and shoulders, motionless, standing just on the other side. She walks the camera through the rest of the house, showing an empty bedroom, an unmade bed, no one anywhere. No one is in the house, she says. No one at all. That tension between what she sees and what should logically be there is hard to shake. Some viewers think it's a shadow cast by an object or a trick of the light bouncing off the frosted glass. Others aren't so sure because the shape is too specific, the rounded head, the width of the shoulders, to easily dismiss. That alone is unsettling. But what makes the second clip arguably worse is how calm everything is before it happens. Her and her husband are in bed watching television, relaxed, covered in blankets when this happens.
En el mejor de los casos, la hemorragia se absorbe. No continuará la hemorragia y hará que el cerebro se inflame. ¿Qué significa eso?
The blanket covering the man's left shoulder is suddenly yanked downward with a sharp, forceful tug. Fast, violent, and completely without explanation, and a distinct swooshing sound goes with it. He flinches immediately, looking down toward his right. She turns her head in the same direction. There's no one else in the frame. Some believe what was caught is classic poltergeist behavior. Physical interference with objects in an otherwise calm domestic space. The kind of activity that tends to escalate when ignored. Skeptics will point to the static camera and suggest it was staged. But the couple's reaction is immediate and looks genuinely startled. Whether these two clips are connected or not, they both carry the same unsettling thread. The idea that something might be sharing a space that's supposed to be private. And like and subscribe if you're enjoying watching this video. What would you do if you started seeing shapes behind closed doors in your own home?